Hi, very glad to see you on the channel. Before you start listening to the story, write in the comments whether you like the voice on the video. I used to believe that love was an anchor. That no matter how rough the waters got, it would keep me steady. But over the years, I realized that sometimes the thing you think is holding you in place is actually dragging you under. Lisa and I have been married for 6 years. In the beginning, she was my world. A brilliant marketing executive with an infectious laugh and a confidence that could light up any room. When we first met, I admired her drive, her ambition. She was everything I wasn't: bold, outspoken, and fiercely independent. I was just a corporate lawyer with a steady job and a quiet nature. I thought we balanced each other out. I thought she saw something in me worth loving. But over time, things changed. Or maybe I just started noticing them. At first, it was small. The dismissive eye rolls when I spoke. The way she corrected me in front of our friends, like I was a misbehaving child. The way she told stories about me. Always the same theme. Daniel, the boring, predictable husband. The man who played it safe. The man who lacked passion. It always ended with the same punchline. Lisa smiling at the laughter of others, while I sat there, swallowing my pride. I told myself it was just her sense of humor, that I was being too sensitive. But then the jokes turned to jabs. Daniel, you wouldn't understand. You've never taken a risk in your life. Don't wait up. Some of us actually have demanding jobs. I swear, if you don't do something about that dad energy, I'm going to start dressing you myself. She said them with a laugh, always in front of others. I laughed along too. What else could I do? Tell our friends that my wife made me feel like a shadow in my own home? That I had started questioning whether I was even worth respecting? No. So I laughed. Until one night I didn't. It was Lisa's cousin's birthday party. A fancy dinner at some high-end restaurant where everyone wore suits and designer dresses. I was never a fan of these gatherings, but I came for her. Sat quietly, ate my food, listened as Lisa dominated the conversation. She was always the center of attention, and that night was no different. Then, as the drinks kept coming, the conversation shifted. Someone joked about power couples, how some relationships just worked because both people were high achievers. Lisa, already on her third glass of wine, leaned back in her chair and smirked. Yeah, well, not everyone can be a power couple, she said, her voice light but cutting. I mean, Daniel is stable, dependable, but passion. She clicked her tongue and waved a hand. Let's just say I bring all the excitement to the marriage. The table erupted into laughter. I sat there, staring at the steak on my plate, feeling something inside me tighten. I could feel the eyes on me, the knowing looks, the pity. That was the moment I realized something ugly. Lisa didn't love me. Not really. She loved the idea of me, the stable husband, the man who would always be there, no matter how many times she cut me down. I clenched my jaw, swallowing the words I wanted to say. But inside, something cracked. I knew then that I had to make a choice. Endure in silence. Or finally speak up. Lisa had a talent for making me feel small. For years, I let it slide, told myself it was just her personality, just playful teasing. But something shifted after that dinner. I found myself replaying her words over and over, picking apart every syllable. That laughter, the way she spoke about me like I was nothing more than a reliable old chair. Something sturdy, something functional, something completely unremarkable. I tried to shake it off, but it lingered like a splinter buried too deep to remove. 2 weeks later, we were at a friend's housewarming party. Lisa's friends, mostly co-workers from her marketing firm, filled the modern, open-concept living room. They were the type of people who thrived on networking, who treated every social event like an opportunity to climb higher. Lisa fit right in. She floated effortlessly from one conversation to the next, drink in hand, laughter ringing out at perfectly timed intervals. I, as usual, stood in the background, a quiet observer. Daniel, her voice cut through the chatter, drawing all eyes to me. I turned, already bracing myself for whatever she was about to say. Lisa smirked, a look I had come to recognize as dangerous. We were just talking about ambition, about drive, qualities that make someone really stand out. She turned to her friend Megan, who was nodding enthusiastically. Megan just got promoted to VP of strategy. Huge deal. And it got me thinking, do you ever wish you had aimed higher, babe? Silence. My grip on my drink tightened. Excuse me? Lisa laughed, as if I were overreacting. Oh, come on. I mean, you've been at the same firm for what? 8 years. 9? You're comfortable, I get it. But don't you ever get bored just playing it safe? A few people chuckled. Megan looked uncomfortable, shifting in her seat. I forced a smile, but something inside me boiled. You mean the job that pays for this house? I said, voice steady. The one that lets you take all those work trips and buy $500 handbags. Lisa blinked. The laughter died. Daniel, don't be so sensitive. It was just a joke. Was it? Because it didn't feel like one. It felt like something deeper, something calculated. I had spent years swallowing my pride, taking her comments in stride, telling myself they didn't matter. But they did. Every single one. And in that moment, I realized how much I let it shape me. How much I had let her shape me. The rest of the night, I barely spoke. I let Lisa keep the spotlight, let her soak in the admiration of her colleagues while I stood in the shadows where she had placed me. But I wasn't just standing there anymore. I was thinking. When we got home, Lisa kicked off her heels and stretched, oblivious to the storm raging inside me. God, that party was exhausting, she muttered, heading toward the kitchen. I followed. Why do you do that? She paused, looking at me over her shoulder. Do what? Talk about me like I'm some underachiever, like I'm someone you settled for. Lisa sighed, rolling her eyes. Oh my God, Daniel, are we really doing this? It was a joke. It's always a joke, I shot back. Every time, always in front of people. Do you ever stop to think how that makes me feel? She turned fully, crossing her arms. Okay, let's get something straight. I am proud of you, all right? But you don't take risks. You don't push yourself. You're comfortable, and that's fine, but I don't want to spend the rest of my life feeling like I have to apologize for wanting more. There it was. The truth buried under all those jokes, finally spoken out loud. I nodded slowly, digesting her words. You want more. She exhaled sharply. I didn't say that to start a fight, Daniel. But it wasn't a fight. It was clarity, and it was long overdue. Lisa went to bed shortly after, but I didn't. I sat in the living room, staring at the dark screen of the TV, listening to the clock ticking on the wall. I had given this woman everything. My loyalty, my patience, my love. And for what? So she could laugh at me with her friends? So she could paint me as a disappointment? I thought about all the sacrifices I had made for this marriage. The late nights working cases so she wouldn't have to stress about money. The promotions I turned down because they would have taken time away from her. The way I had reshaped myself to fit into the mold she wanted. Predictable, safe, a man she could count on but never admire. And then another thought surfaced. If she truly believed I wasn't enough, what was stopping her from looking elsewhere? I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, Lisa acted as if nothing had happened, kissing my cheek before heading to work, leaving me alone in the house we had built together. And for the first time, I realized how empty it felt. I went about my day as usual, but something gnawed at me, a whisper of doubt growing louder. That evening, as I was folding laundry, my mind wandered back to all the times she had been distant lately. The way she guarded her phone more than she used to. The extra work trips. The way she never quite looked at me the same anymore. I shook my head, pushing the thoughts away. No, Lisa was a lot of things, but she wasn't a cheater. Still, doubt is a funny thing. It starts as a whisper, then it becomes a weight. And once it settles in, it doesn't leave. Lisa was good at making me doubt myself. That was her real talent, not marketing, not networking, just making me feel like I was always imagining things. Maybe that's why, at first, I brushed off the uneasy feeling. I told myself I was just being paranoid, that her late nights were just work, that the way she pulled away from me in bed was just stress, that her phone, which never left her side anymore, wasn't hiding anything I needed to worry about. I had spent so many years rationalizing her behavior that it was almost second nature. And yet, something was different now. It wasn't just the way she spoke to me in front of others, or the way she made me feel like an afterthought in my own marriage. It was the way she looked at me when she thought I wasn't watching, like I was an obligation, a chore to deal with before moving on to something more important. That look had been there before, but I had never let myself really see it. Now, I couldn't ignore it. That Friday, Lisa left for work earlier than usual. She was in a rush, barely sparing me a glance before grabbing her coffee and heading out the door. "Big client meeting today," she said, her voice light, casual. "I might be late tonight. Don't wait up." I nodded, forcing a smile. Good luck. She didn't hear me. Or maybe she didn't care to respond. After she left, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at my untouched breakfast, my mind racing. The house was quiet, but my thoughts weren't. For the first time in years, I felt like I had to do something. No more sitting in the background, no more pretending. I needed to know if I was crazy or if my gut was finally catching up with reality. Cleaning had always been my way of clearing my head, so I started in the bedroom. I pulled the sheets from the bed, shoved them into the laundry, then moved on to the closet. Lisa had her side, immaculately arranged, color-coordinated, everything in its place. I started dusting the shelves, wiping down the surfaces. That's when I noticed it. A box. It was small, black, and tucked away in the farthest corner, behind a stack of shoeboxes. It wasn't anything I'd seen before, which was strange because I knew this closet like the back of my hand. My breath hitched as I reached for it, my fingers shaking slightly. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was an old keepsake, something she had forgotten about. But as I flipped open the lid, my stomach twisted. Inside was an expensive-looking men's watch. Not mine. A sleek, polished piece with a silver band and a black face, resting on a velvet cushion. My fingers ran over it, my mind scrambling for an explanation. A gift for me, maybe? But Lisa wasn't the sentimental type. If she was planning on surprising me, she wouldn't hide it in some forgotten corner of the closet. Beneath the watch was a small envelope. I swallowed hard and opened it, my breath catching at the sight of the handwritten note inside. Last weekend was unforgettable. Can't wait for Miami. No name, no signature, just those 8 words staring back at me like a punch to the gut. I sat down hard on the edge of the bed, the letter trembling in my hands. My mind reeled. Last weekend? Had she even been on a trip last weekend? No, she had been home. She had spent most of Sunday out with Megan, or at least that's what she had told me. But now I wasn't so sure. The air in the room felt suffocating. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears, feel the blood rushing to my head. Every single doubt, every quiet suspicion suddenly felt so obvious. Had she been trying to get caught? Or did she just think I was so blind that I never would? I forced myself to breathe, to think. Confronting her now would be useless. Lisa was a master at deflecting, twisting words, making me question my own reality. If I went to her with nothing but a watch and a note, she'd laugh in my face. She'd tell me I was overthinking, that it was a gift for a client, that the note was from a coworker. She'd have an answer for everything. I needed more. I put the box back exactly how I found it, making sure nothing looked out of place. Then, I sat down at my desk, pulled out my laptop, and opened our shared phone plan. Lisa had always been careful, but she wasn't infallible. I scrolled through her call history, my stomach tightening as I spotted an unfamiliar number. Repeated calls, texts, some during work hours, some late at night when she had told me she was exhausted and going to bed early. I grabbed my phone and copied the number. My hand was shaking, but I forced myself to stay calm. I had never done something like this before. Never imagined I would need to, but I needed to know. I opened a search page, pasted the number in. My breath caught as a name popped up. Nathan Carter. I didn't recognize the name, but a quick glance at the profile told me everything I needed to know. So, keynote speaker, Miami conference, the same conference Lisa had been talking about for weeks. The pieces were falling into place so fast I could barely keep up. Lisa had mentioned him before, offhandedly, saying how brilliant he was, how respected in the industry. She had even joked about how every woman at the conference would be throwing themselves at him. I had laughed it off. I wasn't laughing now. I sat there, staring at the screen, feeling my entire marriage crumble around me. The late nights, the dismissive attitude, the constant need to belittle me. It wasn't just emotional distance. It was a cover. She had been pulling away because she needed a reason to justify what she was doing. She needed to make me the villain so she wouldn't have to feel guilty. I clenched my jaw, a new kind of anger settling in my chest. I had spent so long being passive, letting Lisa take control, letting her decide who I was in this marriage. Not anymore. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. I was going to be smart, careful. If she thought I was blind, I would let her believe it. For now, I spent the weekend acting normal. It wasn't easy, especially with Lisa waltzing around the house like she hadn't just shattered our marriage into a million pieces. She had no idea I knew. She had no idea I had found the note, the watch, or the number of the man she was sneaking around with. That ignorance worked in my favor. For now, I let her believe I was the same Daniel she had always known. Quiet, predictable, the man who would never dare question her. She left her phone unattended on Sunday afternoon while she was in the shower. That never happened. It was always glued to her hand, but she must have felt comfortable in her lies. That was her first mistake. I grabbed it, my heart hammering, knowing I had a small window. I didn't need her passcode. I simply swiped down to reveal notifications. A text preview flashed on the screen. Nathan Carter, can't wait to see you again. Miami was unforgettable. I took a picture of it with my own phone, then carefully set hers back exactly how I found it. I walked out of the room before she could come out and catch me, but my blood was boiling. It wasn't just suspicion anymore. It was real, tangible. I had proof now. I sat in my office, staring at my phone. That text message burned into my brain. I wanted to confront her right then and there, but I knew better. Lisa would lie. She would spin some ridiculous excuse. No, I needed to be patient. I needed to let this play out in a way that left no room for doubt. So I made a plan. The first step was ensuring Lisa had no idea what I was up to. That meant playing the part, pretending I was still the oblivious husband who bought into her lies. I smiled when she spoke, nodded at her stories, kissed her goodnight like nothing had changed. It made me sick, but I had to do it. I had to wait for the perfect moment. Her next work trip was coming up in a few days, a regional marketing summit in New York. At least, that's what she had told me. But now I wasn't so sure. I logged into our shared airline account and checked her upcoming flights. Not New York, Miami. My stomach twisted, but I forced myself to stay calm. I wasn't surprised. If anything, it confirmed what I already knew. She was going back to him. I took the next step. I needed more than just a text message to truly bury her. So I installed a GPS tracker under her car. It was easy, a small device, magnetic, barely noticeable. It would feed real-time location updates directly to my phone. I would know exactly where she went, no matter what she told me. The next piece of the puzzle was access to her email. That was trickier. Lisa wasn't careless when it came to her accounts, but she had one flaw. She used the same password variations for everything. I knew her patterns. It took a few tries, but eventually I got in. And what I found made my blood run cold. Dozens of emails with Nathan. Some professional, most not. Plans to meet up. Inside jokes. Late-night messages that made me feel like an outsider in my own marriage. But one email stood out. A hotel reservation in Miami. 2 nights. Under his name. I stared at the screen, my hands clenched into fists. I had all the proof I needed. I could have confronted her right then, demanded answers, thrown the evidence in her face. But that would be too easy. Lisa had spent years making me feel like less of a man, like I was something she had settled for. She had humiliated me in front of friends, laughed at my expense, treated me like an afterthought. No, she didn't deserve an argument. She deserved consequences. I was done playing the fool. It was my turn to take control. I kept my cool as Lisa packed for her New York trip. She barely glanced at me as she zipped up her suitcase, too distracted by whatever plan she had with Nathan. I watched from the doorway, my hands tucked in my pockets, pretending like I wasn't counting the minutes until she walked out that door. "You sure you don't need a ride to the airport?" I asked casually. She waved a hand dismissively. "No, Megan's picking me up." Another lie. I had checked Megan's work schedule. She had a meeting that overlapped with Lisa's supposed flight time. Megan wasn't driving her anywhere. Lisa had arranged her own rental, something she clearly didn't think I'd bother checking. She leaned in, pressing a quick kiss to my cheek, and I had to fight the urge to recoil. "I'll text you when I land," she said, grabbing her suitcase. "Of course," I replied, my voice even. She left, not sparing me a second glance. The second I heard the door shut, I grabbed my phone. The GPS tracker on her car was already active. I watched the dot move in real time, confirming what I already knew. Lisa wasn't going to the airport. She was heading to a hotel. I took my time getting ready. Showered. Changed into a sharp navy suit. It was fitting. I was about to walk into the biggest trial of my life, and the defendant had no idea she was about to be sentenced. By the time I arrived at the restaurant, Lisa and Nathan were already seated at a corner table, sipping wine, leaning in close. She laughed at something he said, her fingers grazing his hand. It was almost funny, watching her play the part of the flirtatious wife, just not to her actual husband. I took a deep breath, steadied my pulse, then walked toward them. I was nearly at their table before Lisa even noticed me. When her eyes flickered up and met mine, the blood drained from her face. "Hey, sweetheart," I said smoothly, pulling out a chair and seating myself right beside Nathan. He stiffened, glancing between us, clearly confused. Lisa, to her credit, recovered quickly. "Daniel," she said, forcing a laugh. What are you doing here?" "I should ask you the same thing," I replied, reaching for the wine bottle and pouring myself a glass. "I thought you had a conference in New York." Lisa's mouth opened, then shut. Nathan frowned. "I'm sorry, who are you?" I turned to him, feigning surprise. "Oh, Lisa didn't mention me?" I extended my hand. "Daniel, her husband." Nathan's eyes widened. His grip on his glass tightened just slightly before he set it down. He looked at Lisa, whose expression was frozen in panic. "I didn't know she was married," Nathan said carefully, his voice suddenly cautious. Lisa finally snapped out her daze. "Daniel, can we talk privately?" I ignored her, instead pulling my phone out of my pocket. "Nathan, since you're new to this, let me catch you up." I tapped my screen, scrolling through the evidence I had collected, text messages, emails, hotel reservations. I turned the phone toward him. "See, Lisa's been really busy, making reservations under your name, sneaking around while telling me she's at work events. And here's the best part, she really thought she could get away with it." Nathan leaned forward, eyes scanning the screen. He inhaled sharply, jaw tightening. "Lisa, what the hell is this?" Lisa's hand shot out, snatching at my phone, but I pulled it away before she could reach it. "Daniel, stop," she hissed, her voice low but urgent. "Stop," I echoed, finally looking at her. "Lisa, I haven't even started." Nathan stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "You told me you were separated," he muttered, grabbing his jacket. Lisa's panic doubled. "Nathan, wait," but he was already walking away. I leaned back in my chair, sipping my wine, watching the unraveling in real time. Lisa whipped back to me, eyes burning. "You had no right." I set my glass down with a soft clink. "No, Lisa, you had no right." I pulled a neatly folded document from my pocket and placed it on the table in front of her. "Divorce papers. Signed." Lisa's mouth parted slightly, her breath catching. "I'll be out of the house by the time you get back," I said calmly, standing to leave. "And don't worry, I'll make sure everyone knows how much you love networking." I turned, walking out, leaving her alone at the table, drowning in the consequences of her choices. I drove home with my window down, letting the night air cool the fire in my chest. The adrenaline was still there, pulsing through my veins, but beneath it was something else. Relief. I had done it. I had confronted Lisa, exposed her, and walked away without giving her the fight she wanted. She had spent years trying to break me down, but in the end, she was the one left shattered. The house was silent when I walked in. Lisa wouldn't be home for hours, if she even had the nerve to come back tonight. I had planned for this. My bags were already packed, sitting neatly by the front door. I wasn't going to wait for some messy argument, some desperate attempt at manipulation. The lease was in her name. I could have fought for my share, but I didn't want it. The house wasn't a home anymore. It was just a place where I had spent too many nights feeling invisible. I moved methodically, making sure I hadn't left anything behind. My laptop, my documents, my passport. Every piece of my life that mattered was already in the trunk of my car. There was nothing left for me here. As I grabbed the last of my things, I hesitated by the kitchen counter. A framed photo of Lisa and me sat there when I hadn't noticed in years. It was from our honeymoon, back when I still believed in her. Back when I still believed in us. I picked it up, studying the way she smiled in the picture, her arms wrapped around me like I was her whole world. I felt nothing looking at it. Not sadness, not anger, just emptiness. I set the frame face down and walked out the door. I checked into a hotel across town, just far enough to be unreachable, but close enough to finalize everything in the coming days. I took a long, hot shower, scrubbing away the weight of the night, the weight of years of silent resentment. By the time I collapsed onto the bed, exhaustion hit me like a freight train. I let it take me under, deeper than I had slept in years. The banging on my hotel door jolted me awake. I groaned, checking the time. 3:12 nachts. My phone had over a dozen missed calls, all from Lisa. The knocking grew more frantic. "Daniel, open the damn door." I sighed, rolling out of bed. I should have ignored her. Let her scream into the empty hallway until security dragged her out. But some part of me wanted to see her like this. Desperate. Unraveled. I cracked the door open, meeting her wild, tear-streaked eyes. "You have some nerve," she spat, pushing her way inside before I could stop her. I let the door swing shut behind her, leaning against the wall with my arms crossed. "What do you want, Lisa?" She whirled on me, fists clenched. "You humiliated me. You set me up, ambushed me in public like I was some kind of joke." I tilted my head. "You are a joke." Her nostrils flared. "You had no right to do that, Daniel. That was our marriage, our business. Not Nathan's, not anyone else's." I let out a cold laugh. "You made it Nathan's business when you crawled into his bed. You made it everyone's business when you spent years treating me like I was disposable. Now, suddenly, you care about keeping things private." She hesitated for half a second, and I saw it. The flicker of guilt, of realization. But it wasn't enough. Lisa never took accountability for anything. Instead, she doubled down. "It wasn't serious, Daniel. It was a mistake." I cut in. "Spare me the cliché. You didn't trip and fall onto another man's dick, Lisa." She flinched. "I was unhappy," she shot back. "You were." I held up a hand, stopping her mid-sentence. "Don't you dare try to turn this on me. I was a good husband. I was loyal. I stood by you while you belittled me in front of your friends, while you made me feel like nothing. And you still threw it all away." Lisa's lower lip trembled. She turned away, pacing like a caged animal. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this," she muttered. I shook my head. "That's where you're wrong. You didn't mean for it to happen. You just didn't mean to get caught." Silence stretched between us. She was breaking, but I felt nothing. No urge to comfort her. No desire to tell her things would be okay. I wanted her to feel this, to sit in it. Finally, she turned back to me, her voice softer now. "Daniel, do you really want to throw everything away? We build a life together." I stared at her, almost in disbelief. After everything, she still thought she had a chance, that there was anything left to salvage. "There is no we anymore, Lisa," I said quietly. "There hasn't been for a long time. You just finally gave me a reason to walk away." Her breath hitched. "You're really leaving?" "I already did." She exhaled sharply, shaking her head. This isn't fair. You can't just erase me from your life." I picked up my jacket, slinging it over my shoulder as I walked toward the door. "Watch me." I pulled it open, nodding toward the hallway. "Now get out." Lisa's eyes filled with something that almost looked like fear. I knew that look. It wasn't heartbreak. It wasn't regret. It was panic. She was finally realizing that I wasn't just angry. I was done. For the first time, she had no control over the situation. No way to manipulate her way back in. She swallowed hard, then brushed past me, her heels clicking against the tile as she stormed out. I didn't watch her leave. I didn't need to. The moment the door shut behind her, I felt it. Freedom. I locked the door, exhaling deeply. There was still more to do. The legal battle, the division of assets, the inevitable fallout. But for now, for the first time in years, I was free. And it felt damn good. The first morning of my new life felt quiet. Not the uneasy, suffocating silence I'd grown used to in my marriage, but a peaceful one. A silence without tension. Without waiting for a passive-aggressive remark. Without Lisa's presence hovering over me like a storm cloud ready to break. I sat in my hotel room, sipping the burnt coffee from the lobby, watching the city wake up through the window. For years, I had started my mornings thinking about Lisa, what she needed, what she wanted, how I could avoid another argument. But today, my first thought was my lawyer. I picked up my phone and dialed. "Daniel, good morning," came the familiar voice of Jacob Hayes, my old law school friend turned divorce attorney. I assume from the late-night text that it's time. I stared down at the contract on the desk, the divorce papers I had served Lisa at the restaurant, the one she had left sitting there, untouched. "Yeah," I said. "It's time." "Good. Then let's make sure she doesn't screw you over on the way out." Jacob had warned me months ago that Lisa wouldn't go down without a fight. Cheaters rarely did. They could shatter a marriage, lie without remorse, tear apart trust. But the moment the consequences came knocking, they played the victim. I had seen it last night, in the way her anger had turned to desperation when she realized I was serious. "She's going to push back," Jacob continued. "She'll try to make this messy. Expect tears, threats, manipulation. But we're ready for that." I exhaled. "Yeah, I know. Do you want to go for an aggressive approach?" Jacob asked. "Or play it clean?" I considered it. A part of me wanted to bury her, expose everything, drag her through a brutal court battle, and make her watch as I dismantled her life the way she had dismantled mine. But I wasn't going to waste any more energy on her than I already had. "Just get me out," I said finally. "Fast and clean." Jacob let out a small laugh. "I knew you'd say that. I'll get the papers filed today. You should consider changing the locks at home." "I'm not going back," I said. "The house is hers." There was a pause. "You sure? You have a right to half of it." "I don't want it. I wasn't interested in fighting over property. I just wanted distance." "Let her keep it. It'll remind her of what she lost." Jacob didn't argue. "All right. I'll be in touch once she gets served officially. In the meantime, keep everything in writing. No emotional conversations. If she calls, don't answer. If she texts, keep it short. The less you engage, the less power she has." After I hung up, I scrolled through my notifications. Lisa had texted twice since she left my hotel room. "Lisa, we need to talk. Please, just give me a chance to explain." "Lisa, don't do this. Don't throw everything away." I locked my phone. She still didn't get it. It was already gone. 2 days passed before Lisa realized I wasn't responding. That's when the messages changed. "Lisa, you're being cruel. After everything we've been through, you owe me a conversation. Lisa, if you won't answer me, I'll come find you." I sighed. Jacob had been right. First, she played the victim. Then, when that didn't work, she tried threats. I blocked her number. That evening, Jacob called. "Lisa's been served," he said, "and she's pissed." I smirked. "Good." She also lawyered up, he added. "And she's pushing for mediation first." I shook my head. "Mediation? She's delusional." Jacob sighed. "She thinks she can convince you to settle this on her terms." "She has no terms," I said flatly. "I'm done negotiating with a liar." Lisa didn't want mediation because she wanted fairness. She wanted an opportunity to manipulate me face to face, to throw out some last-minute tears, some fake remorse, some speech about how we could fix this. But there was nothing left to fix. A week later, the first mediation session was set. I walked into the law office prepared for the usual theatrics, but Lisa had escalated beyond tears and pleading. Now she was angry. She sat across from me, her lawyer at her side, her arms crossed like a petulant child. The sight of her was almost surreal. A week ago, I would have felt something. Sadness, guilt, maybe even regret. But looking at her now, I felt nothing. The mediator, a middle-aged woman with the look of someone who had seen far too many bitter divorces, cleared her throat. "We're here to discuss the terms of the separation. Lisa, you may begin." Lisa straightened, eyes burning into me. "Daniel," she started, her voice laced with fake sincerity, "I think we need to be reasonable about this. We build a life together, and you deserve nothing." I cut in, my voice calm but firm. "You cheated. You destroyed our marriage. And now you're trying to act like we're splitting up because of differences?" I leaned back in my chair. "No, this is cause and effect, Lisa. Actions have consequences." Her jaw clenched. "You're trying to punish me." "No," I said. I'm just refusing to reward you. Her lawyer cleared his throat. Lisa is requesting financial support during this transition. I almost laughed. Support? She makes more than I do. She stepped away from some projects recently. That's not my problem, I said smoothly. She can lean on Nathan Carter for support. He seemed eager enough in that restaurant. Lisa's face turned red. Her lawyer shifted uncomfortably, but pressed on. She's also requesting retention of marital assets, including the house. I nodded. She can have it. Lisa's eyes flickered with surprise. Wait, what? I don't want the house, I said. I already told my lawyer. For the first time, she hesitated. She had come in expecting a fight, expecting me to claw for every penny. Instead, I was walking away like she didn't matter at all, and that hit her harder than any revenge plan ever could. Lisa's voice softened. Daniel, this doesn't have to be ugly. I met her gaze, letting her see just how far removed I was from her. It already is. She looked away. The mediator cleared her throat. All right then. If Daniel is relinquishing claims on the house, that resolves property division. We'll move on to the final paperwork. Lisa barely spoke for the rest of the session. The fight had drained out of her. She had lost. Not just the marriage, not just the comfortable life she had expected to keep, but the power she had wielded over me for years. 2 weeks later, the papers were signed. Lisa's last text came the night before the divorce was finalized. Lisa, I miss you. I wish we could go back. I didn't reply, because I didn't miss her. I was finally free. Thank you for listening to the end. I hope you enjoyed it very much. Don't forget to give a like and tell us in the comments what you would do in such a situation.